Hello and welcome to this filmmaking tutorial brought to you by Sporting Heritage. Over the next 6 months, Sporting Heritage CIC are working in partnership with Art Fund UK to deliver a programme of digital activities to help those with Sporting Heritage collections tell their story online and improve their digital skills. We know that creating digital content can seem daunting, but we hope that this handy tutorial and upcoming online events will give you the confidence to get filming. This video will work as a guide to help you to digitally document some of the objects and stories in your collection and let new audiences know about them and the work that you do. The first half will focus on content creation, from selecting the most relevant objects for your audience to telling the most engaging stories. We will then talk you through the basic processes of video production, with a guide to equipment for every budget. There will be a webinar and Twitter hour in the coming months where we will go into more detail and answer any queries you might have. Whether your Sporting Heritage objects are in the museum you work for, the club you play for, or in a box in your own private collection, we want to hear the story. In this section, we will first consider how to select the best object for your audience, and then help you to think about the best methods of interpretation and storytelling. So, let's select an object. There can be 2 approaches to this. Approach 1, you. Ask yourself, what object best tells my sporting story? Choose something that means a lot to you and brings back memories of an important moment in your own sporting heritage. Remember, the object doesn't need to be old, and people will be really interested in hearing about your sporting story. Approach 2, your audience. Ask yourself, what is my target audience? What are their interests? What objects in my collection would best reflect these interests? This is a great opportunity to talk to the public about what you or your organisation does, and to send your collection directly to your fans, visitors or colleagues. Consider how your stories may inspire others to share their own collections, realising the value of their sporting story through yours. So take some time to assess whether they would prefer to see an object from a particular time or game, or whether they might be more interested in personal stories. Then select your object accordingly. The process we call interpretation is really just about communication, telling the story of your object or collection and its significance or part within a wider narrative. Start to think about your selected object. What do you know about it and what makes it special? Think about these 3 points. Number 1, what is it? Try to describe it. Look at it from different angles and think about how it might look best on camera. Number 2, why did you choose it? What was it that made you think this object would be of interest? Does it tell a story? And number 3, what do you know about it? Try to gather all of the information you have on your chosen object to help you tell the best story you can. Armed with your object and key pieces of information, you're ready to tell your story. Consider these 4 points. Number 1, what is the object story? Does it tell the story of a particular game, a sports person, or perhaps a hidden or unknown history of sport? There are lots of sporting heritage stories out there, but many don't become part of the nation's sporting history. You can change this. 2, try to make it a person-centred story. Most people like to hear stories about people rather than things. What interesting personal stories does your collection tell? 3, does your object link to something in the sports calendar or that is being talked about in the media at the moment? You might get more interest in your story if it links to a contemporary theme or tells the history of an event. Does your object link to a story about an event that has had to be cancelled due to coronavirus? Number 4, remember your target audience. What tone do you want to take with your storytelling? Think about the language you use.
You now have your story and you're ready to share it with the world. Let's move on to section 2, video production. The aims of this section are to gain an understanding of basic production techniques and how to get the best out of the equipment available to you. Good video ultimately relies on 3 key factors: lighting, camera, and sound. We'll explore each area individually, but first, let's look at how to prepare for filming. All cameras need light to function, so it's recommended to set up near a reasonably strong light source, such as a window. It's equally as important to pick a location away from ambient noise. Prepare the area by clearing away any visual distractions or anything that will clutter the frame. Turn off any noisy appliances and turn on any light sources that may help your viewers to see you and your presentation. At this stage, it may be nice to sit down, relax, and reread your content, rehearsing if required. The next stage is to set up your camera and audio for recording. Depending on your available equipment, this may vary in complexity. It's okay to use smaller devices such as phones, tablets, or laptops, but with these, it's especially important to place the camera facing away from the light source. Failure to do this will often cast the presenter in shadow, as smaller cameras almost always struggle with strong dynamic changes in light. For this reason, always place the camera between yourself and the light source. By following this, exposure should be easier to manage. For those using film-styled lighting such as LED or tungsten, ensure to place the light at a reasonable distance to avoid overexposing areas of skin or creating unwanted glare on objects. When exposing, the skin tone should look natural. Too much light and the skin will start to overexpose, disappearing into white. Too little light and the skin will underexpose and start to look muddy and grainy. The perfect exposure is where the skin looks most natural. Finally, frame yourself in the centre of the shot. Avoid leaving too much room at the top or bottom of frame. You're now ready to set up your sound. Again, it's okay to use handheld devices with built-in audio. With these, it's important to place the camera at a reasonable distance, ideally no more than 2 or 3 feet away from you. The closer you are, the clearer the sound. Try to avoid holding the camera if possible, as this will induce handling noise. Shotgun and lapel style mics help improve audio quality by reducing the amount of ambient noise in a recording. These are of course optional, but are a wise investment. For those using shotgun or lapel style microphones, it's important to make sure the microphone never hits the red peak limiter on your recording device. Following this rule will avoid distorted audio recordings. You're now ready to record, and it's all now down to your performance. It's important to relax, talk slowly and be enthusiastic. Do this and your audience will thrive on your passion and will feel comfortable engaging with your content. Make sure to take time to gather close-up shots of any objects you capture, show off its features and focus in on any details that help you explain your story. It now comes to editing. A simple piece to camera can be engaging on its own, without the need to edit. However, for those looking to add production value through editing, it's best practice to try and keep your video flowing, avoid hard cuts where possible, and use any additional close-up footage as cutaways to place over your presentation. There are several low-cost and free software options for both Mac and PC. It's important to do some research to find the program that's best suited to your needs, as features can vary. There are several low-cost and free music websites that offer royalty-free tracks, should you wish to include a music bed in your video. This concludes our training video. We've covered content creation and video production techniques that you can hopefully use in your own productions. Keep an eye on the Sporting Heritage events page for further training and webinars, and follow us on Twitter for further event announcements.